Yeah. Is Hammerfell actually based on California?
Yeah.
The great expectation of Elder Scrolls is that it's kind of like Star Wars now, where we all come into it from a different perspective,
Yes.
a different context. I'm like the old guy thinking about Morrowind. There's older guys than me thinking about pre-Morrowind. And then there's people like Matt, where their first introduction is with Skyrim.
So the first time I actually played Skyrim was on the pad port on PS3, and I still had an epic time with it. I was like, wow, this is what I've been missing out on. And I just never had a real taste of a good fantasy title.
What is the thing about it that you could point only Elder Scrolls does this?
Finally getting with that banger opening in Skyrim that immediately feeds you the lore. You got your dragons, you're a prisoner of war, like it's so rich and exciting. I was immediately hooked into this world. I'm like, I'm getting a taste of that fantasy that I loved growing up with Lord of the Rings, and I have to experience this world.
The rumor is that we're going to Hammerfell and High Rock. So right away, that's different than Skyrim, because if we check out Elder Scrolls fandom, they say that it's also known as Volenfell in Dwemerys. Lots of regions, actually. It's a vast province in the west of Tamriel, bordered by High Rock to the north. So the rumor is that these two continents are going to be in one game. So that's one of the hooks of the new Elder Scrolls, is that you're going to be able to play in these two different regions, as opposed to Oblivion, which is primarily based around Cyrodiil. And I think Morrowind is primarily based in Vardenfell. And I think that Skyrim is obviously Skyrim. So we're kind of, we're, I guess, south of Skyrim in a way. High Rock is west of Skyrim, and we're kind of above Cyrodiil. So it's a massive region covered by vast jungles, wooded mountain ranges, subtropical grasslands, humid swamps, and arid deserts. That sounds really cool to me, because in a way, you kind of get to blend all of the regions that you've done already.
It's like pseudo-California.
That's a great point. Yeah. And that leads us into another rumor, which I kind of can see being true. I remember talking to friends when Starfield came out, because it was a peek into the technology, and that's how you look at things when you look at Bethesda, is you take a peek at what did they do in their last game, and what are they going to build off of, right? So in Starfield, the settlements, the colonies, the shipbuilding. So you gotta assume, if you're just making the safest bet possible, that you're gonna have colonies and shipbuilding, right?
Yes.
But if this is Hammerfell and High Rock, I'm making the bet that this is going to conjure Pirates of the Caribbean. And here's why. Ooh. Because you have a game like Black Flag, which is beloved. You have the fact that Bethesda published one of my favorite Xbox era games, which was a Pirates of the Caribbean game. And I'll have to look into it, but I remember there being some kind of ship battle mechanic. And then you have this notion that you want to bring in some kind of shipbuilding from Starfield. And then there was a game called Redguard that was very like Indiana Jones coded by Bethesda. It was an action adventure game. So I'm picturing, if you took a little bit of the new Indiana Jones game with Machine Games, that kind of atmosphere and world, some of that tech will probably bleed into Bethesda, because Todd Howard was overseeing that. And then you take some of the Pirates of the Caribbean and Redguard influences that they did in the past. And then you take games like Divinity Original Sin 2, we talked about this with Avowed, that kind of piratey, sandy, kind of coastal feel. And I think you could start to picture what this game will look like. How does that sound to you? If you have great expectations of the Elder Scrolls, and I tell you Pirates of the Caribbean, Indiana Jones, shipbuilding, ship combat, Black Flag, what does that make you think?
So I already think of all the mods that transform your Skyrim into Oblivion. So like a little bit more life into your world. I think that's been really popular. even as just as time has gone on, people are like, I love the darkness of Skyrim. There's always a place for that, but there's a lot of leaning towards this more fantastical, bright colorscape. I think of like games like Fable even, and just invoking that sort of epic Lord of the Rings storytelling. Like makes me wonder, are we going to get a little bit of almost the Red Dead 2 map a little bit, which everyone also really loved exploring and thought was interesting. And so, because I always was like, dude, if I could be in Red Dead 2, it's like, makes me wonder if they're listening to me. Like, if I could be in Red Dead 2 with in like medieval times or a high fantasy game, like this would be so sick. And so I wonder if they're picking up on that feeling and that desire in people and going, you know what, we're going to do one better. You guys love Black Flag. We're going to combine that fantasy with more of this like kind of shady thief pirate vibe, so that maybe you can even go down that route instead of just being like this classic hammer it's Hammerfall, right?
Hammerfell and High Rock.
Yes, Hammerfell dual wielding warrior, because that's what those guys are known for. So like I already see like this kind of world of freedom when building your character and role playing. And like that's what I absolutely love about the Elder Scrolls series, Spencer, is like it was like going into Skyrim and playing Elder Scrolls for the first time was like watching Westworld for the first time, like, and imagining what it felt like to be that character walking into Westworld, being immersed. Like anything is possible. Even when I replay this game, like some of the glitches and funny quirks of this game and what people may say the charm, we always talk about with the Elder Scrolls series, anything is possible. I'm going to have a new playthrough every time. And I'm going to be able to carve out my own story with the plethora of different quests, and I get to, as more I play, I understand these quests and build my own story. And so doing that in this world that, like you said, is going to have this pirate theme, we talk about kind of California theme, I think Red Dead 2 now, and then also this desire of being so disappointed by not getting any really good Lord of the Rings games, like finally getting this all delivered here. It almost seems too good to be true, and I feel like a lot of the community is feeling that right now, and rightly so. We're a little skeptical. We got to wait and see what happens.
Yeah, I'm looking at some of the cities and Sentinel docks. Almost like kind of like picture. Oh yeah, I think this is going to be a really cool world. I get very Pirates of the Caribbean, kind of swashbuckling. I think this is going to be cool. You have Sentinel, Helgoth, Ghislaine, Janeth, Rehad, Elenahir, Skaven, Dragonstar. I think this is going to be really sick. It's basically a desert, so I hope that they don't go too desert, too barren wasteland. But it could feel a little bit like you're roaming in Fallout, like Fallout New Vegas kind of vibes.
I need my cowboy hat.
Right. Yeah, I really think you're going to be like pirate vibes for sure. Which I think is I think that's a cool take, and I think that makes sense. That,
you know what that makes me think? Like bounty hunting could be really big and cool, and even with like, I think games like Jedi Survivor, where they have that bounty hunting quest line, like that could be really sick, tied in with the Dark Brotherhood around this time.
Right. That makes sense. Being, like you said, being a thief, being a traitor, I think that all kind of fits into that pirate aesthetic. I hope they go dark on the storyline. I think that would be really fun, to try to bring some more mystique and magic kind of to the writing, where you feel like you're in a dangerous world. And then it would be cool too, they could bring in unique creatures with lots of personality, like goblins and all the fun creatures that you see in Oblivion, where you're just like, these things are wild, that kind of thing. Another thing that people were talking about, I heard Maddie mentioning it, and I'm sure this has got to be true, but basically Skyrim style progression, where there's not really classes, it's more just like choose your own path. How do you feel about that? Do you like that concept of like the way they built that out in Skyrim?
For me, for replay value, I really like I was saying earlier, being able to create my own role play experience, my own story. And the more I learn and play through these different quests, the more I'm able to immerse myself in a certain role play experience. And so I like that freedom to be able to choose and, you know, maybe just have a little bit of warrior in me or a lot of it, right? Maybe I'm like a witcher where I have somewhat some magical abilities that I'm going to use, but I'm more going to heavily rely on my dexterity and my sword play. And so I really like that freedom. Now, if they do lean more towards like class building, like I felt like that more in like Oblivion. If they lean more towards in that sort of direction, am I going to be mad? No, I'm going to be curious to see what they do. But of course, I already know there's going to be mods for all this stuff at one point in one day. So I'm not too worried about it. I just want them to do a good job at the base level of this game, because I know the community is going to come through. And so let's just hope and pray that they do a good job at setting the ground, the foundation that is very much likable, very much exciting, very much fun to explore, has a lot of diversity and depth. I want depth. Like when you were saying, like, I hope they go dark with like maybe some quests, some of the enemies. I'm like, that is so appropriate, especially if I imagine the sun is out in this game, you know, a lot more. Things are more brighter. I'm getting a lot more reds and greens, you know, in this. Like, I want to contrast that and give the land a bit more depth with its content through adding some darkness in the writing and tone. That would be really, really fun.
That's kind of where our heads are at with the expectations. We expect Hammerfall and High Rock. We expect pirates. We expect probably ships or castle building. We expect it to feel like an elevated Skyrim. I think you have to expect, maybe you don't want this, but you have to expect procedural generation, at least in how they generate the map. Meaning they're going to press a button, generate the region, and then hopefully everything that's built on top and inside of that is bespoke, like crafted by hand, not like random outposts, random bandit, random out. Like and that's got to be hard for developers to think about, going backwards, like going less content, more old school like building. But I really think it's better to have a 20 to 40 hour campaign that feels really, really dense than have like a 200-hour campaign that feels like it was all procedurally generated and you're just doing these meaningless tasks.
Right.
So
I think
that's going to be a tough balance.
I think about, it's, when we talk about these leaks of settlement building or ship building, I immediately think of Starfield. How we talked about how some of those features were lacking and not so fun. With this, I hope they pick up and learn their lesson that we need more incentive to do these things, because when we come to Elder Scrolls, it's all about the adventure. It's all about the quest. It's about your character. And so I've played games that are super fun to build your base and defend it. And so if they create that sort of feeling for your ship and for your settlement, your base, or so you will, that's what's going to draw me into like now caring more about these features, these mechanics, and enrich my experience and have it add to my character. Like, this is where my character's base is, like, this is where he's from, this is the ship, and this is how it's benefiting my character and adding to the role play experience. And so I felt like in Starfield it was a little weak, a little lackluster. We need to boost it up, guys. Yeah.
Well, we'll leave it there. Tell us what you guys are expecting when it comes to the Elder Scrolls. I think it's going to be a tough challenge, and I think there's going to be a lot of genre mashing, and I think that comes from the fans' expectations and from the developers' desires and wants. And I think it's important to remember that, like, the Elder Scrolls, as soon as you got to Oblivion, it wasn't a traditional CRPG. Like, it was an action-adventure game with RPG mechanics. And so I think as much as we love games like Baldur's Gate, you have to anticipate this will not be like Baldur's Gate. That's my guess. It's gonna be an action adventure game. So it's really about how do you create the best action adventure game while elevating the RPG elements. But yeah, those are our thoughts and opinions on some of these leaks and rumors. So if you guys have some of your own wants, desires, wishes for the Elder Scrolls series, let us know in the comments down below. And Matt, where can they follow along if they want more JumbyJumbwa?
You can find me on Instagram and YouTube at JumbyJumbwa, JumbyJumbwa. I'll see you guys.
Yeah, and if you guys like Tactically Sound, you're already here on the Yetti Den where we host the show. So go ahead, like and subscribe, and we will see you guys next time. Later. Bye.
Peace.
Yeah.